Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, March 15th Board of Selectmen meeting. It being 6 p.m., we're going to call the meeting to order and enter into executive session, and then we'll be back to return in open session back on live TV at approximately 7 p.m. So with that, can I get a motion to enter executive session, please?
A motion to enter into executive session to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for union negotiations and strategy discussion regarding contracts for the local 379 MCOP AFL-CIO Local 2522 FPFA, United Steelworkers Unit A and Unit B, Local 1702 AFSCME DPW, and Boyden Library Employee Association, and then to reconvene an open session.
All right, with that being an executive session, we just, second. We just need to do a roll call, so we'll go right in order.
Mark, yes?
Leah, yes?
Stephanie, yes?
All right, great. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you back here at approximately 7 p.m.
We're still waiting for
Jamie?
Jamie.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Tuesday, March 15th Board of Selectmen's meeting. We're back from executive session. Sorry we're a few minutes late, but we're going to get back started, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So, Mr. Muldoon, do you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance while we have you here?
Start me off.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so going right into citizens' input, I know we have one citizen. If you can tell us your name, where you live, and then let us know what you've got.
Arthur Muldoon, 112 Comcast Street, Unit 7, Foxborough, Mass. I'm here to congratulate the people who ran the March 6th Saturday from 8:30 to 12. They should be commended. Very informative, very quick, didn't miss a trick, and I take my hat off to you. It should have been done 25 years ago, but seeing that we got it, let's continue it. And
CIP.
Yep,
Capital Improvement Committee.
what?
Capital Improvement Committee.
CIP.
The, actually, during that session, one of the people that spoke was Bill Yucca, the chairman of the building committee. He mentioned that he supervised over $100 million worth of work, and I take my hat off to him too. During his presentation, he brought up the DPW job, which I think should be the first priority. Because if you don't give the craftsmen adequate material and equipment to do their job, it just ain't get done. And on the second was he mentioned the
Community Center?
the new proposed building, and he used the term recreation building. And one of the things I'd like to know is, I know that once is the senior center, one is a community center, now it's a recreation center.
It's a community center, Arthur. Community center.
Well, I kind of differ with you on that term, because in my estimation, the Boyden Library is the community center of this town. And what is your definition of a community center? I don't have one because I don't know that. I don't know one.
The traditional community centers that I've seen include recreation. I also include council on aging, veterans, your human services type of event, type of functions in the town.
Does it have the library in there too?
It does not.
It does
It
not,
does not.
because that was going to be my second question.
Yeah, it does not.
So it's that's a quandary, because I'm for only the senior centers in their own building. I shoot pool in a wide sector of the adjacent towns. I've been doing that for the last 3 years since the Walpole Senior Center was opened. I've seen they have only for seniors. Franklin has got only for seniors. Wellesley's got only for seniors. And I could go on and on. I believe the seniors always got short shift. They were the last. They're the poor relations that are pushed aside. And I don't feel that this town should have a recreation and the seniors together. I don't think you can do justice to either one. And I want justice done to the seniors, just because I'm one. And the other thing is On the new reorganization of the three that you spoke about, you also spoke, I'm going through the chair, Leah.
Yeah, we like to keep it to 5 minutes if we can,
all
but go
right.
ahead, go ahead.
You mentioned the library. That was going to be part of the organization of the senior center,
No.
the recreation.
That was never included, Arthur. Not included as part of that group.
You used the term in one of the meetings, either a meeting here, because I saw it twice on the TV.
Wasn't here.
Wasn't here.
Well, then it was Saturday. And I don't think it was Saturday.
Yeah.
But I know that you said it, because I said, gee, Bill's starting to turn
No.
a difference.
No, library, I would not have used that term, Arthur. I maybe you heard that, but I will tell you that I've not used the term library within the community center function at all. in any of the presentations.
No, with the reorganization.
I'm sorry, then with the reorganization as well. It was never part of the discussions that we had. So,
All right, I'm done.
Okay.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening, thank you
Okay.
very much.
great. Thank you.
All right, so at 7:05, we have the Common Vic application for Tropical Smoothie Cafe, and it looks like we have Mr. Patel on the line.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you perfectly fine. Thank you.
All right, great. So we have your application here. If you can tell us a little bit about what you're doing, and then we may have a couple quick questions for you.
Of course. So Tropical Smoothie Cafe is a franchise. We are a health-based fast food restaurant. We serve smoothies, flatbreads, wraps. Everything is fresh and made to order for customers, and we are located in Patriots Place, right next to Vineyard Vines. And that's about it. I am one of the owners of the cafe. Yeah, that's about it for Tropical.
Okay, everything looks good. I just, I do have to mention, I know everything is in order with building and Board of Health, but I think this Common Vic license is kind of coming after you opened. I think that there was a little bit of miscommunication, so we do have to just address that. It sounds like everything is in good order now. I think I saw you opened last Friday, but from what I understand, with all departments, everything seems to be in good order, so it's just this last piece.
Of course, and then that's my fault, and I apologize for that. I had no idea that I had to apply for this permit. We've opened other businesses in other towns where we've only been required to have the CO and the Board of Health certification, so it's my fault. But as soon as I got the email, I did apply for the permit and pay for it within an hour of receiving the email. So, like I said, it was my fault, but I hopefully it's all taken care of now.
Yep, it seems like it is. Any questions from the board?
No, not
No? Okay. We had to give you a hard time, but hopefully it wasn't too hard there.
No, don't worry about that.
My only question was going to be, when do you plan on opening?
Right? All right, great. So we just have to take a motion, vote on it, and then you're all set to go after this item.
Motion to approve a common victualler license for Mahant Management LLC, doing business as Tropical Smoothie Cafe.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. Welcome to Foxborough.
Thank you.
All right, so moving right along, at 7:10, we have Foxborough Baseball and Softball, and I see Vin out there. If you can come up to the table, tell us your name, the organization you're here for, tell us a little bit about your event.
Okay, so I'm Vin Callio. I'm the new president of Foxborough Youth Baseball. I took over that this year, but I've been on that board for about 7 years. So pre-COVID, for those who remember, I think your daughter played, didn't she? At one
Oh
point?
yeah, we've done this many years, yep.
So we have our little opening day ceremony. It's going to be on April 16th on a Saturday. We've typically started on the end of Bird Street at the Schneider Gate. We've had come up Bird Street. We've gone halfway around the Common with a little parade. We make our way over to the Booth 1 field near the IGO, and we have a little opening day ceremonies. We have a local high school student sing the national anthem. We have first pitch ceremonies. Deb Giardino's going to throw out a first pitch this year, so it's fun. It's quick. And we've done it every year that I've been on the board, except for the 2 years of COVID that we didn't do it, just because we couldn't, or maybe sometimes there's been weather. So looking forward to getting back to that event and having it again and getting, kids on grass. So that's basically the whole ceremony.
All right, and I see police has signed off, like public safety has signed off on the application. Any questions from the board? No? I know for one, I'm excited it's happening again.
Yeah, we are
so
too.
I'm psyched. And there's no changes. We can still meet in the Schneider Grove lot, I think we call it. There,
Yeah, so I reached out to, it used to be Doug Seuss used to coordinate that when he worked for them. He doesn't anymore, but and they would just open that swinging gate for us so we
Okay.
could queue up, but it's open all the time now.
Yeah, it's open all the time
Because
now.
Union Straw releases space over there, so I think we're fine on that.
Okay.
But we'll sort all that out.
All right, well, I think we're excited to see that it's back on.
Yep, and this year for a little different, we've got some high school baseball players marching with us, and as has been usual, Renee's Pee Wee baseball kids will probably be up the front holding the banner, so.
You just want to make sure you coordinate with Paula Hearn over at Schneider about the use of the space, so that
Yep.
he's, because I think there is a liability form or something like that that has to be signed
Okay,
off.
sure.
Okay.
All right, so I don't think there's any further discussion, so we're ready for a motion.
Motion to approve the public event application for Foxborough Youth Baseball and Softball Opening Day Parade on April 16th, starting at 9:30 a.m.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All right, great. Thanks, Vin.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
All right, next, Mr. Yukna. You can introduce yourself and let us know about the interest of submission to MSBA.
Bill Yukna, 30 Valley Forge Way, School Business Administrator and the Chairman of the Building Committee. As we have previously talked about and has been on the capital CIP requisition for a couple of years now, the Taylor School is the last of the 5 schools to look forward to a renovation. 2001, a study was done after the Ahern and the IGO were completed, and an assessment of the remaining 3 schools was done at that time. The issue that came out was that the high school needed it the most because of curriculum changes through NEASC studies and because of just overall program changes. So we did the high school first. The study then, kind of dictated to the borough because of the condition of the facility, issues with the roof, issues with the heating systems. Even though it was actually newer than the Taylor. The Taylor was a 1964 building, the borough was a 1967 building. We are just at the very end stages of the borough project at this point. And so, as we said, we know it's a multi-year process with the MSBA to even get in line to get a project like this going. Last time we started the borough project in 2013, we resubmitted in 2014, we resubmitted in 2015, and finally got a green light to start moving forward. So from 2015 to 2022 is how long the project took to complete. So we're not talking about something that's going to happen tomorrow. We're not talking about funding that's going to be needed to be discussed at the town yet. The statement of interest is solely an exploratory thing by the school committee with the MSBA, documenting what the issues are with the building, documenting what the hopes are for the future of that building. And if you read the vote that they require both the Board of Selectmen and the school committee to sign off on, it is solely saying that we're coming forward with this project for them to review, making no commitment ourselves, and they're making no commitment. It's just the start of the process. We could get through the whole statement of interest, and the town could say no, and you walk away. At this point, the only effort that's being put in is being put in by the school committee and the building committee to put the first submission together. So we don't pay for anybody else to do any work. It's a pretty simple process that way. But this, along with the school committee's votes, are the 2 main requirements that have to go in first before they will even look at the statement of interest.
And are they doing that? Are they voting next school committee?
School committee's voting on next Tuesday.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And we can't waive the
They've
reading?
already actually voted
Okay,
to start the process
Okay.
almost 2 months ago, 3 months ago. So this is just the formal vote that they'll take to put on into the documents.
okay, we have to read this whole 2-page document? It can't be, we can't
No, you don't have to read the whole
Okay.
thing. I think the first paragraph is really the thing, and if you just read the two highlighted, the main lines for the replacement, what's actually being done, you don't have to read all the stuff underneath those. So basically, what the thing is telling you is that we're not looking to tear down a building and build a new one. We're looking to renovate and potentially expand depending on what the needs are once the final studies are done. So that's what the two paragraphs under what the vote are saying.
Okay, so the first paragraph and then essentially the two pieces in bold
Yep,
is what we
yep.
need. Okay. Okay, any discussion? So this just basically gets our place in line started.
Started,
This is-
yeah.
Okay. Any questions?
No.
Discussion? Okay, all right. Think we're ready for the motion?
Resolved, having convened in an open meeting on March 15th, 2022, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Foxborough, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form to be submitted by April 29th for the Taylor Elementary School located at 196 South Street, which describes and explains the following deficiencies in the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. In the first item, replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating and ventilating systems to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related cost in a school facility. Second item is replacement of or addition to obsolete building in order to provide for a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements.
Now, would I second that, Bill? Yeah, second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bill.
All right, so we are moving along to the 6:20 item. So we were just in executive session about the collective bargaining agreement vote. We'll only be voting on the fire contract. I don't know, Mike, if you want to say anything, or if we're just good to have the vote.
I think you're good.
Okay, all right, great, so,
Motion, ready?
we're ready, yep,
Okay,
ready.
motion to approve the MOA between the town and firefighter union, Local 2522 FPFA, from July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025.
Oh, I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All right, great.
I forgot Seth was out of the loop for that.
You're too far to kick.
Usually Doc is, I'll second, so quick.
Oh, Dave used to kick me all the time when we were all
Now
together.
we're too far.
Yeah.
All right, so we're actually a couple minutes ahead of schedule. We're making up time. So next is the CIP request review and approval. So Bill, I think you're going to discuss that item or give us the overview. We have the
Right.
summary attached here in our files.
Exactly. So, for the board's information and indication of what happened, the first weekend in March is when we normally hold the Capital Improvement Planning Committee for its Saturday session, which goes over all of the requests that are made by various town departments and committees for funding of capital needs. Capital needs are defined as, in the bylaws as being, I believe, $25,000 value or more, and used and used in something that is not considered to be day-to-day operational. It's more of a major item for consideration. That includes buildings, trucks, things of that nature. So the committee looked at all those items and all those requests, and they're included in the file itself, and you all have that. We were able to confirm that all of the requests that were being made were ones which were clearly needed, and we had meetings with all the various departments, and they testified before the committee that all these needs were critical needs, and some had been delayed for several years before we were able to get to a point we could actually afford to do them. So this year was a little different in the sense that we normally go through the process and then we define the financing piece in the same meeting, and then vote to make a recommendation to this board as part of the same meeting. This year, we didn't do that. We actually went through all the items first, and then, due to the fact that this year we have the additional element of federal funds that we could use through the ARPA money, the local funds that was distributed, the local ARPA funds that were distributed for Foxborough, as well as access to funds through the county that were designated for Foxborough as well. Everybody knows the story about the limit on that, and so, but there is a certain amount of those county funds that's actually funds that we can utilize at this point in time. And I think it was about somewhere in the order of $370,000. So we coupled that with the funding that we received on a local level, which was about $1.95 million, and along with funding with the ambulance account and with water and sewer, excess, like their free cash is what they typically use it as. We were able to fund all of the items by using all of those available funding sources, as well as an additional $160,000 in free cash. It's really worthy of noting that the $160,000 is the lowest amount that I can ever remember on record that we've used in terms of a capital plan. So, and that was due mostly because we had the extra money coming in from the federal sources. So we were able to meet again on Monday morning, yesterday morning. We went through the committee was able to meet with the one absence being Superintendent Bertos, who was away, but the remaining members of the committee were able to meet right here in this room, and were able to vote to approve the funding sources for all of the items that we had on the list. So it's a substantial list. It's about $5.3 million. But some of that also includes funding from Chapter 90, which represents about $1.2 million of funding this year, a significant increase over previous years, because we've typically used somewhere around $620,000 a year from Chapter 90. This year, the governor has proposed doubling that amount for the upcoming year, because there was additional federal funds available, as well as the fact that there is the amount of taxes that were received during the past year was higher than anticipated, so the additional funding is available for fixing local roads. Something that the MMA has supported for years, and said that the amount that they were allocating was actually much smaller than what was actually needed. So it was great to see that amount of money, so we're able to allocate that out as well. So what we have before you is a plan that identifies a total of, to be exact, let me just bring this up, the total amount of $5,352,217. I'm happy to take any questions that anybody may have at this point in time. I want to say that I want to thank Stephanie and Dan Peterson and Chris Gallagher and Amy Bertos, Dr. Amy Bertos, for assisting us in getting this document to you for tonight. I know Stephanie did a great job of identifying the concerns from the board's perspective on that committee, and actually was helpful in getting to us to where we are today. So I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks. Bill, so the Chapter 90 is explicitly street reconstruction.
That's right. And pavements and
And
sidewalk improvements, you can do that as well.
So sidewalk improvements can be included in it?
Yes, that's right.
So of that 1.25, is that already earmarked or allocated to specific projects?
We have identified, we do have a pavement management program, which we do fund on a regular basis. We were, as you might expect, we were behind a little bit this past few years, because we weren't able to generate additional money for that locally to support that. So we are going to try and get back on track with that. We also were trying to, and Chris Gallagher is going to address the issue of the sidewalk plan, which is actually underway right now. And we should have the sidewalk plan in place probably within the next few weeks prior to town meeting, that we'll have that in place, so we can then start looking to funding those as well.
Okay, that's actually exactly what I was getting at. So let's say we have town meeting and the article for the South Street sidewalk doesn't pass,
Right.
you know, it's still a viable
Need.
concern and
Right.
need,
Yeah.
and something that should be or could be considered in our planning. So I'm glad to hear that we're gonna have some kind of program or plan for sidewalks as well.
So there is no disagreement from what you just described, from anyone in town that I know of.
Right.
The issue is, we need to have a plan
Yep.
to do that. And by having a plan with the roads, we were able to effectively pick off the roads as we went along, to the point now we actually have a pretty good system in place. We want to do the same thing for sidewalks,
Great,
all right?
that's excellent.
Yeah, and I also think that, you know, there was a lot of discussion just because of the extra money coming in and the article kind of, you know, being at the same time. And, you know, and one thing that Chris said that is just worth mentioning, maybe it's now, or maybe it would have been when we discussed the article, was just that I don't think anybody is thinking that the sidewalks aren't good, you know, to have, but Chris said something that stuck with me. You know, they're trying to maintain the existing sidewalks. So not that a new sidewalk isn't a priority, but, you know, I think what's happening is, you know, the process is to hit them, you know, we have that, what is it, the
Pavement management
plan,
plan?
the
Yeah.
plan. So, you know, it kind of, I think like this could, you know, that issue with South Street could fit somewhere at some point in the plan. So, you know, I just thought it was worth mentioning because there was some discussion about it, you know.
Right.
And I guess the only thing I want to say about this is, thank you guys. I got the easy year because you know, I know just from watching CIP, the struggle is always prioritizing. You know, they're all good projects, good items that we know are needed. I mean, the only thing I do want to mention is that being able to use this money was wonderful, and to get this all done, and you can't use it for operating, so this was the perfect way to use this money. But the one thing, you know me, I always a little financially want to mention that this money that we spent, so, you know, Dan mentioned to Bill yesterday that the first question AdCom was going to come back with, well, how much is left in free cash? You know, we only used 160,000, and so we're around close to 1.8 million. So what I just want to make note is, like, if this money hadn't come to us, we wouldn't have been able to touch, Bill, does that 1.8 include the OPEB payment or no?
It does.
Oh,
It does. It
okay.
does. It includes the
So-
OPEB payment for.
Yeah, so really, we're about just under $1 million that would have been
Well,
available.
Let me just, I need to clarify that. So the OPEB payment we paid the OPEB payment out of the allocated, last year we had a certified number around $4 million for free cash. We paid the OPEB payment for last year out of that number. So and we're using about $1 million towards the budget this year, which means that you have the net out of about 1.7 million, 1.7.
Okay, so that's including the next payment.
So the next payment
Okay.
will come out of the recertification in the fall of this year.
Okay.
So, but that's for the certification for this current fiscal year. The budget for fiscal '23 will actually reflect the payment being in the budget itself. You'll see that there's an article in the warrant, but it's actually included in the budget. So we actually included that in our estimations for the budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess my point is, I mean, we were able to take advantage of it. A lot of this would not have been funded had we not been able to. And, you know, Bill's hoping the recharge will bring us, you know, a little bump back up, you know, after this year. So, I mean, I guess it's just my way of saying we still need to be a little bit lean.
We need to be
and
careful,
a little careful of our spending, because this was definitely a gift for the town, you know. I mean, and I know, listen, we didn't make the money we did because of COVID, so it was, but
Right.
it was, in other words, is because the feds and the county money was able to come in, we were able to take care of a lot of good projects and good items that came before us, so.
So there is still money available in the county funds, and we're waiting to see what comes out of the ruling from Congress or from the U.S. Treasury on how we can use that. But there is still a couple projects that we may still come before the board to look at. One being the replacement of the water meters in town. It's about $1 million project. They already have $200,000 towards that. And we would need another $800,000 to do that, which would be eligible without further approval from Congress on that or the Treasury. The other one would be to look at putting some money towards some of the dam reconstruction projects in town. That would also be eligible as well. So we'll be back to you when we have further clarification on that. But I think we've tried to leave some money behind for possibly doing some downtown improvements as well, which I think a lot of folks have expressed interest on. But I think what's key is that we're able to do the pool in this, which is really a nice town asset that we haven't been able to use for a number of years. We're going to make an improvement to that, and I think that'll be a nice thing for the community to have going forward. So we're grateful for the funds, but as Stephanie correctly pointed out, if we had a regular year, we probably wouldn't be in the position that we were to accept or need the federal money. We probably would have been able to do some things, but absent that, we're in a limited position to do so. But having this was really helpful. I just want to point out that we started at this very exact position last year. We're at $1.6 million. Now we're at 1.8. So we did tick up a little bit in terms of a starting point. So I think that's important for everybody to know that we did improve a little bit. We didn't, not significantly, but we're heading in the right direction.
So Bill, do we add the pool in?
Pool is in there. It's under
Yeah, I
the
see,
Comcast.
but I don't remember us
Yeah, it's-
talking about the pool. I remember it was mentioned, but I didn't
Right.
remember that we,
Yeah, we was under Human Services Cocasset River Recreation Project.
okay.
Okay.
And the other thing is, I know yesterday we talked about, because of the funding of some of these, doesn't necessarily have to be voted on at town meeting, the ARPA.
That's right, so-
Are we gonna
We'll
is the
segregate
article
those.
gonna separate what has to be, is it anything over 500,000?
No, so the difference here is that any of the ARPA money items only have to be approved by the Board of Selectmen. They are not required to be approved by town meeting. The things that are going to be approved at town meeting are use of the water reserves, the use of free cash, use of the ambulance fund. So we'll segregate all those out, and we'll give you, and that will be a separate item just for the rebuttal.
So as is, this one
Yeah.
isn't gonna be
That's right.
reflected at town meeting.
But it is appropriate for the board to review all of these items because that's what the bylaw says, that you're supposed to review all those items and still act on them. Okay. All right.
Okay.
One last point?
Yeah, of course.
So just one last thing on streets and sidewalks. I would urge Chris Gallagher and whoever else is involved in developing that street and sidewalk plan to consider the voice of the townspeople and the voters who have a small population, but some population of them have voiced a concern about South Street. And so I think ultimately, a plan that is built by the town is great. And this is gonna sound glib, but it's not us, other than our own vote. It's not Chris, it's not Bill and Mike who decide. It's ultimately the townspeople who decide how the money is spent. So if that rises to the top, that particular project, then that's the way it should be.
The one concern about that, though, Seth, is that the way that article was written, it pretty much limits the expenditure to $75,000. We don't know what the number's gonna be,
So
because it
that's-
hasn't been estimated.
That's fine, Bill, but I'm speaking to the substance more than the form.
Sure.
I
I
understand
understand,
that
yeah.
there may be constraints based on the wording, but it's the substance of it, is that there's the voice of the towns, people, a certain segment of them have spoken and said, there should be something we need to do here, so.
And that should be factored into the plan, is what you're saying?
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly, thank you.
Okay, so I think we do have a motion for this one. Is there any further discussion on this item? No, okay.
Motion to approve the fiscal year 2023 Capital Improvement Planning Committee requests as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I had
Yep.
one, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
So, real quickly, there was over the last several years, we've had some articles come before the town around the Capital Improvement Planning Committee the structure of the committee. And so everything I've seen this year, this feels like it's the process is working. It's vetted. Anyone who's wanted to come and voice any concerns about any of the items was welcome to come on Saturday or Monday or today. And so I would just like to point that out, that I think this is a process that works for the town, and
Appreciate that.
that's it.
Yeah, that's a very good point to make, Seth.
Well, not that I want to disagree with you, Seth, but there was no deliberation on any of this. It was, we went through the whole list.
Could there have been those stuff?
There could have been, but
Sure.
but what I'm saying is, I wouldn't use, this, to me, watching many years of it, this was a little bit of a different process. I wouldn't use this year as the one to say, wow, because there was, I mean, the department heads came before and gave us, but because the money was there was no voting, there was no prioritizing. So I wouldn't say this year is the year to, maybe few past years are the ones to point out more than this one. Just being a part of it this year and watching many this year was a little bit different with all that money sitting there. Past years, I would say, would be a better example to say that it works.
But this year, we did the long-term plan, the bylaw was cleaned up, so there's definitely some,
Yeah.
even though it was an easy year, there was definitely some improvement to the process, for sure. All right. We voted on that, right? No, we didn't?
No,
All
we
those
got a
in-
discussion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to item 8, which is the annual town meeting warrant. We're actually right on time. So we're going to start with the marijuana article, and then we're going to move to the sign bylaw article. And then I just added something to cover us in case we needed to talk about any other articles, although I don't have any specifically that I need to talk about, or procedural questions as far as like what the timeline looks like. Seth, I know you had mentioned that, so then we'll go into that item last. So let's start with the marijuana article. And just to set the stage on this, it is still in draft. So, we talked as a board about putting it forward. We had a starting place, which that's all that it was. The draft has gone to a number of different internal departments, from town manager's office, planning department, public safety. The planning board then met on Thursday, which Christina sent the link out. I think everyone got a chance on our board to watch that, and that was televised. So I think that discussion was helpful, and we have a couple of members of the planning board here this evening. And now the bylaw is with us to further review. I don't think, we don't have to approve it tonight as it is. We can take more feedback, and we have some time to further massage it. But just to hit the highlights, and anyone chime in after if I've forgotten anything. And we have Mr. Costello here as well, town council, just to, kind of walk us through if there's any technical questions or anything. From the first draft that we saw, some of the bigger changes have been creating an overlay district. So the first draft had a table in it, and, was it allowed by special permit in S1 or, general business? Where was it allowed? Where was it allowed? And it was too complicated to do in a table, so we ended up creating an overlay district, which, if you look at the map, and I don't see it attached in here. I thought it was in here.
That's up to
And
us.
it must have disappeared, because I thought I saw it, but it's gone.
Yeah, I don't see
May
it.
have been in our emails. So I
Okay.
remember seeing it. Too.
Yeah, okay. So there's an overlay map, which planning board has seen. It sounds like all you guys have seen it. But basically, the intent of the overlay map is to keep it out of our uptown, kind of that section, any residential section, and keep it more towards like the limited industrial places and kind of the S1 and general industrial up along Route 1 and down along the bottom of the town. The second piece is we removed a lot of the licensing pieces and just pointed to the host community agreement. So if you watched planning board, some discussions came up about hours of operation and all that, and we ended up taking all that out and just would have to be pointed to the host community agreement, which would have to be one of the first things that was executed. Another bigger theme that came up is, as far as the host community agreement, is the Board of Selectmen the right group to look at that? Or do we want to maybe have some type of special group that's maybe someone from planning board, someone from Selectmen, and we haven't decided what the details look like. Maybe it's a citizen, maybe it's someone from AdCom, but a special group to look at that host community agreement for us to then approve it. I think that's all. There's a lot of other little tweaks in the language. Barney did look at it as well, to just look at it from his perspective. So there's many more tweaks. I feel like it's coming further along. But is there anything else, Pat or Bill, big theme that I'm forgetting?
So the one thing with that, we've talked with, I actually had spoken with Frank Spillane, the town moderator on this, as well as the town council, and it made sense for us to take a look at maybe combining the two articles into one, because one actually removes the prohibition of
Yes.
that in the town, and having that combined with the article, the enabling act, if you will, of the zoning, does seem to fit together, because as was correctly pointed out, if you do take away the enabling or the prohibition, and then don't have an enabling piece of legislation that would allow that to be done in certain areas, it could potentially be done anywhere. So in other words, if somebody disagreed with the way the article was written, but yet the town voted to remove the prohibition, you'd have the ability to do it, but it could be done potentially anywhere.
Reorder them.
Yeah. Well, you could, I suppose you could do that as well.
Yeah, that was going to
but-
be one of my questions. So what if we ever voted to rescind, right? I guess this could happen.
Yeah.
And then the second article somehow didn't pass. with
That's,
two-thirds
that
of
was
people.
what I just described.
Okay,
So
because
if you
in ours
had
it's still
that-
the opposite.
Yeah, so
draft.
you could do it the other way, I suppose, but it also could be done in one article. And I talked to town council about that
Okay.
today, and with the town moderator to see if that was possible. And we both collectively, I think that's a possibility.
So the one article would be Article 1 as it's written now, just as the first paragraph
Right,
of the
exactly.
article. Okay.
Exactly.
So these are still, although they're sponsored by the planning board, they are zoning articles requiring the 2/3 vote, requiring the public hearings, and many more steps down the road for these. But I think that the draft bylaw has come a lot further in the last 2 weeks, really, than where we started out, because you have to start out somewhere.
Right.
And then everyone's got to kind of talk through it. So is there anything else, kind of big themes that I'm?
I don't think so. I agree with you 100%. It had to start somewhere, and the process sort of took us to where we are today. And so that's actually a successful story in many ways, because we had several different iterations. A lot of people have had input into it, and ultimately, I think we'll end up with a bylaw that actually is a pretty good one.
Yeah, but we're not done. So that's what we're here
Right.
to do with this group tonight, is to look at that and to see if there's anything that we want to further tweak as this goes down the road.
Go ahead, you go first.
Oh, thanks, Doc. So just a quick comment and then a question. So the comment is, I'd be surprised if folks wanted a marijuana store at the old Foxfield Plaza there. That feels like a weird place for it. And then my question is around 7.6.3 applicability, which states, nothing in this bylaw shall be construed to supersede federal and state laws governing the sale and distribution of narcotic drugs. Marijuana is illegal at the federal level. Is that accurate?
Still is.
I'm going to let town council
If I may, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I don't believe marijuana is classified as a narcotic drug under federal law. You're correct. It is not legalized under federal law, but I believe it's a Class D substance in a different classification than narcotics. That language is interesting. It's sort of a catch-all clause that many bylaws do have, solely to confirm the fact that this is a local legislative act, and it doesn't supersede any federal or state laws that govern the use, distribution of narcotics.
If we could confirm.
No, I think Pat, I apologize. I think I might have to disagree with you. I think marijuana is classified as a Class 1,
The narcotic,
Schedule 1.
doc, yeah. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it is, federally.
All right, we'll look
We
into
could look
that.
that up,
I'll
and I can
certainly
get back to you.
clarify.
Confirm.
Yeah. What a lot of people might not realize is I'm also a pharmacist. So I'm pretty sure it's a Class 1, but I'll double check.
And just to go back to that piece of the zoning near Foxfield, just, I think the rationale behind that is some of the industrial park area in there, you may, after COVID, have some of those buildings down there towards, the end that could be closing, that do we want to open this to possibly include that section?
Is that on the other side of Route 1?
No, so, like if you were go down past Jake and Joe's, like that area there.
There's some
Where you
office
mentioned
space there.
Foxfield.
Yeah,
Office
yeah.
space there.
Sorry, Bill?
There's office space there that's empty.
Yeah, still what I would consider residential around that area. Mansfield. Anyway.
Okay, anything else in the? before
Yeah,
we go to
I do
Doc?
have a question, and it's the next section up, 762. Why would there be another authorized designee on behalf of the board for its review? Why wouldn't we be the reviewing board?
I think that the spirit of that was in case we wanted to have a group that would review the host community agreement and then come to us with a recommendation as the ultimate local licensing authority.
So it'd be like a CIP committee recommending to the Board of Selectmen for final action. No different.
And I apologize, I don't read it that way. I read it that they're the ones that are going to approve the license. Am I reading that incorrectly?
Yeah, I thought they could give us a recommendation, but we had to ultimately approve it, Pat, unless that changed since the last we talked.
No, that's correct, Madam Chair. Whoever under the bylaw is authorized to execute the host community agreements has to have the legal authority to bind the town contractually. The host community agreements are, at essence, legal contracts, and it would have to be someone such as the Board of Selectmen or the town manager who have the authority to bind the town, who actually execute the agreement. What many communities do is they appoint a committee or delegate to other town officers or a board the initial task of vetting, reviewing potential applicants, and making recommendations to the ultimate executory authority relative to execution of the host community agreement. So that's something I just saw that language in the recent draft. We would want to tweak that a little bit more so than how
So that it would
presented
just
now.
say review, not execute. In 762,
Yeah.
section
Right.
1.
Yeah, I would like to see better language in there,
Okay,
yes.
agree. Any other questions, comments from the board? We do have some members of the planning board, not to put you guys on the spot. I didn't know if you had any questions, comments, anything you wanted to discuss. They did post it as a meeting. However, it doesn't look like you have a quorum to call a meeting to order or anything, but.
I think Kevin's on.
Oh, he is. Oh, I didn't know Kevin was
We
on.
do have Barney, Kevin, Lorraine, and Paige on.
Oh, my apologies. I didn't know you guys were on. Do you need or want to call a meeting to order on this? Probably.
It's just two members at this point.
Well, no, Kevin's here. Kevin's here. I didn't
Okay.
realize Kevin was on.
Okay.
My apologies, Kevin. We can't see or hear him yet. I don't know if.
Can you bring them up? They can put them on?
Madam Chair, if I may note, if we have a quorum of the planning board present, it would not be appropriate for them to deliberate here unless they do have a posted meeting scheduled for tonight.
They do have one posted, so I don't know if they needed to call it to order. So, Kevin, my
Excellent.
apologies.
There
I
we
did
go.
not realize you're on. If you guys need or want to call a meeting to order, if you're just listening this evening.
So I don't know who is here. I know Paige is here, and I know, but I don't know who else
So
is.
here in the room, you have Jeff and Ron.
So I mean, if any of those individuals do want to make commentary, then I guess we probably would have to formally call the meeting to order.
We're looking at the gentleman in the room to see if anyone would like to.
Well, I do have a question.
Okay, yeah, I think we should, so we can bring
Fine.
these two up if you don't mind. It's two gentlemen
No,
up,
not at
so
all.
why don't you guys call your meeting to order, and then if you want to come join us at the table?
So as part of this selectmen's meeting, and because we posted this as a potential open meeting, I'll call the planning board meeting open for review of this article.
All right, can you hear everyone okay, Kevin?
Yeah, I can hear everyone fine.
Okay, and Paige is on as well, I heard?
Yes.
Okay.
So my only question, and since council is here, and this is going to be, we've already talked about this, and people are rolling their eyes, but this goes back to the issue, because and I would put this to council, please, it seemed to me quite explicit in the statute that ballot approval is necessary at some point before this goes, because we don't have an affirmative vote yet at the ballot for this. And so I just want to make sure, I'm skittish about that.
And Frank, you want to come up too, or are you good, you want to come up as well, or are you good back there? This whole question about, is just rescinding the former ballot sufficient, or do we need a ballot for this to move forward?
So the original vote was an opinion vote. It was not a
Non-binding.
binding vote.
That's fine, but my point is that it seemed to me quite clear in statute that an affirmative vote is needed at the ballot box at some point.
For certain things. And council, Pat, could you address that, please?
Sure, thank you. I don't believe that a ballot vote is adopted to generally adopt a bylaw such as that presented here. You're absolutely correct. There are certain prohibitions or limitations that the town can impose by bylaw that do have to go to the ballot first before they can go to town meeting. And the recently revised draft bylaw does in fact have one of those agreements, and the language is a little different in there. It's section 7612.1, which provides that the number of marijuana retailers, it can only relate to retailers, not establishments, within the town shall not exceed the minimum number required under Chapter 94G, Section 3A22, to basically the number of package stores licenses issued in the town. In order for us to impose that limitation on the number of adult use marijuana facilities, we would need a ballot question approved by the voters. But short of that particular provision, I believe we can adopt the proposed bylaws as presented, which would, number one, eliminate the prohibitions that appear in two separate sections of the bylaws, and adopt this particular adult use bylaw by vote of town meeting. It would be a 2/3 vote of town meeting. That's all that's required.
Okay, just wanted to make sure,
Yeah,
don't want to get ahead of
that's a
ourselves.
good point.
Yeah, and while we're on that, just for everyone's understanding and to be on the same page, that would give us one retail and one cultivation based on the number of alcohol establishments that we have in town. So that's what we would be looking at.
Get one
If
of
this
each.
were to move forward as far as numbers of establishments. So one and one.
Well, keep in mind, Madam Chair, that the language in the statute in Section 3A22 only allows the town to limit the number of retailers to that number two. I don't believe we can bar or prohibit various types of marijuana establishments, but I don't believe there's anything in the statute that would allow us to limit the number of establishments other than retailers.
Okay, so that's new.
That's interesting,
That's
yeah.
new information to me, Pat. What I had heard all along was one and one, and I think
That's all I heard
that's
too.
probably so we're limited in the number of retail, but not necessarily in the number of cultivation.
That's correct.
Or
We
process.
could limit
Or processing,
retailers
right.
Processing facilities.
maximum
yeah.
Right,
of two.
right.
Oh, you could do that, you could include that in the bylaw, I suppose, correct, Pat? If you wanted to limit it to no more than one?
I don't think so.
No, I think the licensing requirements bill are such that the we can limit the numbers of establishments by not executing or approving host community agreements for establishments. In order for any establishment to apply for a license for the Cannabis Control Commission, it would have to first execute a host community agreement with the town. And the town is not mandated or required to execute limitless host community agreements. We can exercise some level of discretion in that regard. We cannot unreasonably refuse to execute a host community agreement, but various reasons could arise, neighborhood conditions, number of facilities already operating in the town that in my mind would justify the select board or the executory authority, whoever's designated, to refuse to execute a host community agreement. That in and of itself is a limitation that lies with the town. But in terms of bylaws, we can only adopt bylaws limiting marijuana establishments and facilities to the extent that they're allowed in that section of Section 3 of Chapter 94G. And as I noted, the limitation that we have chosen to incorporate into the bylaw is one that would require prior ballot approval in order to implement. So
To go beyond one, to go beyond one.
to go beyond, for retailers, to go beyond 2, I think the number is.
Okay. And we had talked about, if we do have one, maybe it's a deadline or something to get the most competitive host community agreement that we could, that could be part of the process as well.
That was part of the planning board discussion.
Yeah, they talked about that, yep.
I think Paige had said that. I thought it was 1 and 1 too.
Yeah,
That's the
what
way we understood it
yeah.
when we heard that from,
Yeah.
I think it was from Brookline, we'd heard that.
Yeah.
It was the way it was presented to us.
So the overlay map, just since that came up tonight, does that lie with the planning board then to massage that as you guys see fit? Because,
Yeah.
like I said, I think it was a first pass at it. I don't think, at least speaking for myself, no one's tied or married to that. It was just really a starting point for what you guys feel.
And so, does everybody understand, the advantages of using that type of approach? And it specifically addresses what you were talking about, Seth, about within a zone, whether it would be, in this case, limited industrial or general, where there might be areas that you think, or the town thinks, we shouldn't go there. Maybe it's Foxfield Plaza, but that's only part of a broader zone. This way, you can be, if you're writing zoning, you're accepting the whole enchilada if it becomes part of, codified as part of the zoning tables, This way, you're able to be more selective.
And S1 was the only, what I'd call clean zone. The other ones up on Route 1, appeared, almost uptown, like, whether it's the old Schneider or kind of where, I'm going to call it the new Winslow's, even though it's probably been there for 20 years, is, just, we felt like the overlay map, once we started to try to, exclude and include different areas, it just became a little too murky. So it's a starting point, for whatever you guys see fit. And it is by special permit as well. So there'd be that extra layer, if it goes down the road as well.
Another quick thought, to the planning board, and I'm going back a number of years. Am I mistaken when I sort of seem to remember at one point the town voted only to allow marijuana facilities on the Route 1 district?
That vote
No,
was
it's
for
not-
medical use.
It was medical use, okay.
That's right.
All right, okay.
And by the way, there still could be a medical, application
Sure.
coming in. I wouldn't anticipate it, but who knows,
Okay. And I did do a little research on my phone. It's remarkable what you can do on that thing.
It's like a computer.
It's almost
Literally.
like a computer. Yeah, marijuana is Schedule 1 under the DEA.
Okay.
Okay.
There are a couple of pharmaceuticals for cancer treatment that are Class 3 and Class 4, but marijuana.
Okay.
And I did get a.
So we'll
test
definitely
from
have to look at that piece that you
Yeah.
brought up.
Well, again, not again. I think there are towns that have already looked at that piece and went forward, obviously, anyway, and the state went forward allowing it.
That's an interesting point, Doc. That was one of the clauses that was added in the recent redraft of the document, and I believe it was lifted or from another bylaw that had been approved. So if that particular language had already been through the process and approved by the Attorney General's office, that raises an interesting question. We'll certainly look into that in more detail.
Now, the future of marijuana is on-site consumption, I guess. This is a big thing that, just so you know, we are not looking at on-site consumption. So that's where you would literally, go to an establishment and consume the marijuana on the premises, much like a bar with alcohol.
Cigar bars.
Yeah, exactly. So
Hookah bar.
So
Hookah bars, yeah.
just to let everyone know, we did talk about that, and we felt, baby steps. We're not looking to include that. So, anything else from this board, your board, since we're all here?
No, I actually had the same concerns that Jeff did as far as the overlay districts seem to spread a little bit further than they should, and just protection of the
Yeah.
residents.
And we just happened to run into each other at town hall, and
Yes, we did.
And we kind of had a little quick ad hoc meeting, which I think really helped answer a lot of questions. Hear where each other's coming from, and kind of just bang out a lot of pieces of it. So, again, another step of the process. The next step would be for us to, I think, continue to finalize this. I think Paige still's looking at it. Barney, there may be some revisions that went in that maybe, Pat, you haven't even seen yet. So I think we do have to have, staff and council continue to review those.
Agreed.
And then would it go to planning maybe one more time? Or you guys think I think we'd have to come to each of us one more time. Yeah, to
Convene a
kind of,
public hearing?
yeah, yep.
I would think so.
But even to
think so,
just
too.
say that you're good with it being final before it goes to the public hearing.
Kev?
Yeah, I believe that it should come back to us one more time as well, and the selectmen, Mr. Costello should take a final review. Barney, if he has anything else he wants to add or delete based on conversation we had tonight in order to make it more sound.
So I think
That
the
would be
next
good.
step is council and staff do that. You guys, there's still a little bit of time before your next meeting, and then you guys will meet on a Thursday, and we'll meet again on a Tuesday. So if you guys have your final sign off, and then it comes to us to make sure that we're all good on that final language, I think both of us have to review it one more time before it goes to that public hearing and finalization. And we do have the calendar in here as far as the warrant, the dates, everything's final, the date that we take our positions, the date that we sign the warrant, so that's in here, and we have the appropriate time to make those next steps work. All right.
Okay.
Anything else? We'll have you guys adjourn your meeting.
Meeting being completed with the selectmen, I recommend that we adjourn. Do I have a vote?
Well, that would be a second to that, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yeah, second, sorry about that.
I guess he
And a
said,
roll call vote, yeah.
Jeff, aye.
Ron, aye.
Kevin, aye.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Probably should have.
Thank
said
you.
session because he got billed.
They want you to admit Bonnie to the meeting, too.
All right, so next up we have the sign bylaw, and again, much like the marijuana bylaw, there's, it's still in the draft stage, and it's going back and forth between a number of staff, and boards to really get this to a final place. So we have Barney here on the line, we have Mrs. Brew on the line, right? She here as well, I believe.
Yep.
Lorraine, can you hear us? We can't see you, but just making,
There you
there
are.
you
There
are,
you are.
okay. Everyone can hear us okay? All right, so I'm actually gonna turn it over to you guys to let us know what's changed in this one. And I don't know, Frank, do you wanna come up, or anyone else wanna come up to the table for this one? Feel free. And just remind me your name again, sir?
Robert Burr, Attorney Bob Burr.
Okay. Mr. Burr is also here as well, just for those that are on the phone, and Mr. Spillane's at the table as well.
Madam Chairman, do you want me to start?
Yeah, if you don't mind starting, Barney.
Do they have to?
Okay,
open the-
happy to.
No.
So when we
Do you
met
guys,
several
do you guys
weeks
need,
ago,
do you need
the
to open
initial-
up a meeting or anything?
No, we don't.
Okay, I didn't think so, okay.
When we met several weeks ago on this issue, the initial version that we had required a separation between electronic billboards of 1,000 feet and a separation between static billboards of 500 feet. And the question was asked at that meeting by Doc Elfman as to how many billboards we anticipated, could ultimately be constructed along I-95 and I-495. And with the assistance of Ryan Norton at the DPW, I'd like to publicly express appreciation for his assistance. We were able to determine that the various locations along the two highways that could allow for billboards to be constructed. And then in an effort to reduce that number, after discussion, we decided on two things. Number one was to eliminate static billboards, and number two was to increase the radius around each billboard, each electronic billboard, from 1,000 feet to 1,500 feet. And as a consequence, what we've determined is we could potentially, along I-95, have locations for 5 billboards going from north to south. One would be on Arthur Round's property. The second would be on the DPW property. There are 2 potential locations below that. And then farther south, one that is along the I-95, I-495 Cloverleaf. And then one location on the I-495 side. So conceivably, potentially, we could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, potentially 6 electronic billboards. Although I think, and I hope I would ultimately be correct, that would be more than what we would see. One of the advantages of increasing the radius, the radii, from 1,000 feet to 1,500 feet is we eliminate the potential for any billboard to be constructed between the Arthur Rounds property and the DPW property. And ideally, that would increase the value of those 2 billboards. So again, the changes that we've made since the initial meeting were to eliminate static billboards along the 2 interstate highways and to increase the radii around electronic billboards from 1,000 feet to 1,500 feet. Lorraine or Frank, if you want to add anything, please do so.
No, I think you summed it up quite well.
I have a quick question, and maybe this is the dense one, but I thought we were looking at 3 to 5, more likely 3. And if we're expanding the radius, how are we going up to 6?
No.
Well, I think
You're not going.
what I did in response to a question was off the top of my head say 3 to 5.
Okay.
And when I spoke with Mr. Keegan the next day, he suggested that we, contact Ryan Norton and have an analysis done. And again, what Ryan has determined were the locations that potentially an electronic billboard or potentially a billboard at that point in time, could be constructed.
And these could only go in the limited industrial?
Yes.
So anything that's just regular residential and R40 would be out along 495 and 95.
Right, and it has to actually touch the highway as well.
Doc, sorry.
Yeah, could we as a town limit the number to let's say 2 or 3?
I guess the answer is yes, but number one, I'm reluctant to do that. I don't feel it's appropriate to limit number in a bylaw. And number two, I just question the potential legal issues that might arise.
And originally, there was possibly 6. Now it's being reduced, correct me if I'm wrong, Marnie, to possibly 4. And the 4th one is very iffy because it's,
We just said 6.
I don't know how we got 6. Originally, there was possibly 5 or 6 when the 1,000-foot separation for electronic. You could have had more with static in between. The static was eliminated, so all of those are gone. Because the static could be 500 feet from another static or an electronic. So in theory, you could have a billboard every 500 feet along there. Eliminating the static and increasing the distance to 1,500 feet really, in my opinion, reduces it down to 4. I don't know how you come up with 6, or 5. And the fourth one is very iffy because it's very close to the interchange with 495. And billboards can, correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, has to be more than 500 feet from an on or off ramp. So there's only one, do you guys have the map in front of you?
Yeah, and there's only one clover, one leaf of the clover that's within the right zone.
So for example, on the side of the off-ramp from 495 onto 495, no signs could go there, because that's the off-ramp. On the other side of 495, by where it says Green Street, at the very northern part of that property, it's a possibility, but it has to be more than 500 feet from the off-ramp or on-ramp, because 495 is getting on 95 right there.
And there's an existing house right across from the tip of that northern piece.
Exactly. So that's very iffy. And then if you look more north, where the two circles intersect, there are only those two, and then there's one other possible site. There's two sites that's possible there.
There are two sites below the radii.
Right, but only one of them could have a light.
If you're going north to south, you have the potential billboard on Mr. Round's property and the potential billboard on the DPW property. And there's a location just south of the radii for the DPW. And then there's also a potential location near the 95-140 Cloverleaf.
And that's
So there's
the
four potential locations there, although again, I would say that one of them would probably be iffy.
All right. So that's the four locations.
Okay.
The fourth one is very iffy because of the interchange right there.
Right, and then the ones down near I-95 and 495 potentially are two more, but again, I would think one of them would be iffy as well.
How could two go there? Only one could go there because of the 1,500-foot radius. And there's,
Depending where you put it, I guess.
I think at the presentation, Frank, I recall Frank, like someone asking how many, and Frank, I believe that you used the 3 and possibly 4. That's what I remember. I don't remember anything about 5 or 6. Like what you're saying right now is, I think, what you presented to us is what was presented for us to hop on to sponsor the article, was what you're saying right now, 3 and possibly a 4. Does anybody else recall that?
Yeah, definitely, but
Yeah.
what Barney's done since is had a survey
Ryan.
with someone
Okay.
actually going out and measuring and realizing that
Okay.
even with the 1,500 buffer, there could potentially be 6.
Okay, so I guess I'm gonna hop in.
I disagree with that. There's no way 6 can go in there with 1,500 feet. If you put the map up, I can show it to you. There's only 4, if you assume East Belcher and DPW, if you're going south there's 2 spots for a possible billboard, but you couldn't put 2 there. Only one could go, because if you put one in, the other one's going to be within the 1,500 feet. And then you're down by the interchange, and only one could go down there, again, because of the 1,500-foot radius, but also the possibility is 0 along the off-ramp. So there's really only 4 possible locations. I have no idea how you could come up with 6. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I do agree with that, and I thank you again, Attorney Robert Burr, representing American Outdoor in conjunction with the Rounds property. At the last meeting, we did discuss, the last meeting before this board was limiting the number. I do agree with Barney that I don't think you'd want to necessarily limit the number, but you could achieve it by expanding the radii, which is what's been achieved here from 1,000 to 1,500 feet. That way, no applicant is somehow being disenfranchised because they applied late. Dissimilar to the 40B statute, where first in line does have priority. But here, that expanded radii makes sense. I will tell you that there are a number of other frustrating factors that make it impracticable to believe that there would be a large number. There may be as few as 2, ultimately, when you look at a number of factors. Number one is the on-ramp, off-ramp, which is subject to federal law, down in the 495 area. There are also conservation concerns with some of these properties. There are, with the 300 feet from an existing resident, there's issues there. I do believe, I would defer to Barney and the fact that it's actually been engineered, but I think there will be limitations. Also from a marketability standpoint, some of these properties may be appropriate for, say, a single-face billboard, but by the time you get done with the cost of erecting the sign, paying the landowner, and then also a mitigation package to the town, which of course they would want, the sign may not be commercially as practicable. So that would also be a limitation as well, too, I would think.
All right, so I'm going to start off with saying that I personally myself support the article and what it might bring us in revenue. But I just have to be honest that I've had 3 or 4 people reach out and they're not really that happy with it. And, you know, they even though they're up on 95 and 495, they're just not liking the look for our town. And of course, it'll be decided at town meeting floor. But honestly, I kind of feel like if people sat here in 5 or 6, you're going to lose them. You know, because, you know, and like I said, it's only a small group that's reached out to me, and I don't know if anybody else, you know, and I'm saying that with saying that I do support it, and I was explaining why I did for the people that reached out to me. But if there's going to be too many, I have just a gut feeling you're going to lose people.
And this is a 50-50 vote. This is not a 2/3
That's right.
vote, just to remind
It's not a zoning
Or
board.
at two, just-
Yeah, just, you know, I mean, I you know, like I said, I if someone reaches out to me and they're telling me their concerns, I feel like it's my responsibility to at least share that with the board. But with that being said, I do support it, so.
I will say, just in speaking to individual board members, that is the collective feeling amongst everyone sitting on the board that I know of, that I've spoken to about this, that fewer is better in this case. Fewer is more in terms of value, if you will. So we want to try and, so that went into the discussion about, you know, what should the radii be, because it would actually limit the number of boards for that reason. So the concern that you've just expressed, Stephanie, is real, and I think, and I completely concur with that. I don't think we want to have a lot of them. I think a couple is probably good, and from a town's revenue perspective, it's a great thing in that respect. But we don't want to, at the same time, we don't have sign pollution either.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I just feel like that they'll outweigh the value of the income with the aesthetic of looking at multiple signs.
If I could comment on that, that reflection, which I agree, 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 or unlimited over a period of time, people will become concerned about that. In this situation, there's really 2 steps here. This is the authority that the town's given to actually have even one sign on I-95. Subsequent to this, if the bylaw is passed and then approved by the Attorney General's office or not rejected, it would then be up to an applicant to apply to the zoning board, and in each one of those public hearings, it would be determined the concerns that the residents would actually have, particular residents that would be impacted. And there can be further restrictions even in the decision, as long as they're reasonable, in those hearings as well, too.
And not that there'd be anything inappropriate, but what you're just saying is, so the zoning board is bringing it forward. So to get people to feel that, then it's gonna be up to the zoning board how many. To me, that's where you're gonna lose them, because the zoning board is the ones that are developing the bylaw, and if Barney says there could possibly be 5 or 6, I'm not sure where you're gonna get people to think that, then the zoning board is gonna decide.
I just need to
You
correct
know,
on
approve
that
them,
point. The
you know.
zoning board's not developing this. This is a selectmen's article.
Yeah.
So Bonnie happened to be a person who was asked to help write it because he's familiar with the sign bylaw as well as Lorraine. Both have been very, familiar with how that's been done over the years. And so they took their collective experience, if you will, in this, and were able to help craft that bylaw accordingly.
But then they
But-
will have,
Ultimately,
they will
the
be
the zoning board of
saying-
appeals will be,
Yeah.
but ultimately, I want to be clear, it's the board's
Yeah.
proposal.
I think Doc has something, and then Lorraine, I believe that you maybe had something, so after Doc, did you have something?
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Well, my question is, okay, I totally understand not having a limitation, maybe in the bylaw of 2 or 3, but can we have a limitation as a policy? Do you see the splitting hairs where
Policy can always be changed.
policies can be changed, but at least if we agreed on a policy that we wouldn't have more than 2 or 3,
Yeah.
make me feel better.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that if you wanted to get it down to 3, and I could prove it's 3, I think Attorney Burr, myself, and Mr. Overett, Attorney Overett, can work. I have a few ideas where we could eliminate the 495 interchange, within the zoning, which would, and then further it,
Although would the interchange ones be more lucrative?
Again, I don't even know if one could go down there
Okay.
right now.
Yeah.
And I don't think it would be any more
Okay.
lucrative, because, when people are getting off at interchange, they should really be focusing on that, not looking
Right.
And not that.
I'm just thinking
No.
2 highways,
to see where they,
Yeah, I just was gonna go to
Well-
Lorraine next, if you don't mind, Seth.
Sure.
Lorraine, I know it's hard when you're on Zoom and everyone else is in the room, but
Okay.
your turn.
Just
for your
a
patience.
couple of thoughts. I was wondering, Barney, what you think if perhaps we should go back to Ryan and have him do the radii, do another radius around the next, after the first 2 that are already circled. Number 1, show that could be a third, but then also can we get, definite clarification on what are the limitations around the cloverleaf?
Well, answering the first question, because I raised that point with Ryan, we can increase the radii up to an even 2,000 feet without jeopardizing the potential locations for the rounds and DPW properties. And by increasing it to up to 2,000 feet, we would be able to eliminate, and it actually wouldn't even have to be 2,000 feet. We could do it at 1,935 feet. We eliminate the potential location that is directly south of the DPW property. That would be the potential location, that's just north of the lodge.
And then could we confirm about the requirements around the cloverleaf? Like, is it just prohibited?
Yeah, we could do that, or we could put language in here that would, again, I could work on something with Frank and with Bob to, put language in here that would prohibit any location of a billboard, within X number of feet of an interchange, of a highway interchange.
Yeah, in the discussion with AdCom, we did really talk about probably 3 or 4 signs, so, as if I presented incorrect information, but if we can do something to clarify that, that would be great.
I think this language, we could eliminate 495 from the language, because very little of it is really in there. And then put in language that says it has to be so many feet away from an interchange or an off-ramp or on-ramp, some language to that, to eliminate that area down there. I think even, I'd have to see the blow-up, but even if we increase it to 2,000 feet, you're still going to have the further southern parcel as a possibility, Barney.
Right.
But I think we could narrow it down to 3. And that parcel on the southern part of that area is very wet. So, I've talked with Bill Buckley about that. So that'd be hard to do right there. But the northern part of that parcel could be a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
So
You're
we
talking
could do
on the
language
495
to
side?
reduce it down to 3, I think, but, easy enough.
Yeah, so, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding would be that we could limit via bylaw as opposed to policy simply by, we could limit it to 1 by making the radius 20 miles, right? So, it's, number 1's not in the bylaw, but the limitation makes it such, so I think.
Yeah, I think
there's
that's
that-
And it sounds
Yeah,
like
so
Barney
we're
may
good.
even know that it's 1935 feet, that's very specific, so maybe Ryan looked at that, or you have an idea that that would
Yeah,
really get us.
I asked Brian that specific question, and my question was if the radii were expanded to eliminate the potential location that is immediately to the south, that it's one that's designated on the DPW property, how many feet would that be? And he said it's 1,935 feet. So we could even go, higher. He said up to 2,000 feet without any jeopardy of the potential location on the DPW property and the Arthur Rounds property. I don't want to go that high because I don't want to fall into any potential traps. But we can certainly increase it to say 1,950 feet and eliminate the potential location that's immediately south of the DPW property.
Yeah, I think the general spirit is, I think we would rather see it, and like Lorraine said, AdCom heard the kind of 3 to 4, so I think we're looking for it to be in that neighborhood and understanding we can't limit it in the bylaw, but maybe make the radius such that it would, prohibit or keep us in that range.
I feel a lot more comfortable with that.
Yeah, right now, I think it's limited to 3 or 4, but we can definitely eliminate, I think, with language down by the interchange. But even if you increase it to 2,000, I think you're still going to have 3.
Okay.
Possible. That other site, may be too wet, so you may not even be able to
Right.
put one there.
I can understand Bonnie's hesitancy towards doing that because it's, you gotta be careful that you don't limit it too much to the point that it's not defensible
What-
in a legal battle of some
Which
sort.
part is not defensible? I don't
Well,
understand
because if you don't want, if you limit it to based on just sort of limiting for just 2 boards, that could be, I would think that might be challenged.
Yeah. But by zoning, you can make it more restrictive. So like right now, we're saying none are available
Right.
out on 95. This change would allow it, but have all these restrictions in it,
Right.
So as we move forward, just kind of blending this item with the remaining one for when we need to really be final. Looking at the draft calendar that's here, we have 2 more meetings. We have the March 29th, and then we're due to sign the warrant on April 12th. So I think if we could have everything final for the marijuana article and this article for the meeting on the 29th, like that would be ideal so that we can, have those discussions, maybe make recommendations, but we do have until the 12th if we need to. Correct? My timing?
Just a reminder, Madam Chair, that also AdCom has to be a consideration here too, and I would think that they would want to have a little more time just to review this.
Okay,
too.
so you think we're,
I think the 29th would be the ideal time to get it done.
right, so that's what we're all aiming for, the 29th of March. But we do have until April 12th if anything
Technically,
slips.
yes. Technically.
And that's when we're due to sign it. So at the meeting on the 29th, it looks like we're due to get the final budget, and then hopefully these articles are finalized, because I think the rest of them are really pretty final, like the select board one, and the other ones they're not really going through any active editing or drafts. But if we can all just kind of aim to try to be final for the 29th, I think that would be the plan.
Deal, yeah.
So we would be looking to make the recommendations on the 29th and then sign and finalize the warrant at our meeting on the 12th.
Good
Does that
plan.
answer your questions as far as timeline looking forward, or anything else?
So, just one clarifying question, so, or just so I understand the process, signing and what are the steps?
So the recommending is us saying, like, do we support each article, including the citizens petitions? So that's the recommendations of the articles. And then signing the warrant is when it's done.
Done.
That there can be no more further changes.
So by recommending, if 3 out of 4 vote not to recommend a particular article, what happens?
Still goes through. That's
Yeah,
just our recommendation.
just like
Right.
AdCom, they've had
Yeah, they
articles
got the
before, you know.
seven-
It's on the
where-
warrant. It just,
Yeah.
it just, it
But
just.
it's on the
just-
warrant, but it's being rewritten by people outside of this board. And, right, I mean, so I'm just wondering what the recourse is for the Board of Selectmen to decide that an article, or, so, if an article is on the warrant when the warrant is closed, those warrants, those articles, every single one of those articles needs to go to, necessarily goes to town meeting.
I guess we could pull one before we sign it on the
You
12th,
could,
though.
yeah. You could eliminate them
Yeah.
prior to,
Yeah, we can
prior to
eliminate-
taking final votes on
When's that
them.
process? That's what recommendation is the job of the advisory committee. I'm considering, not, my consideration is when do we have the opportunity to pull articles from the warrant?
Before you sign the warrant.
The 29th and 12th.
Yeah, and I think that would come in tandem with the recommendation. Like, if we all sat here and said, we don't support any of these,
Well-
it would kind of happen, I would think, at that time,
Right.
so that it would be pulled for the 12th. And I think, Frank, do you have a comment?
Yes, I would expect that this article would not be pulled, because we had a citizen's petition that we had all ready to file, but we asked that the board, consider putting it on. We weren't asking you to endorse it at the time, because we were trying to work with, the ZBA in writing it, so that it would be a article that they could live with, and they weren't endorsing it at the time, so that we could do all these changes. If we had filed the citizen's petition, it would have been that first version, and then if we did any changes to it, we would have to amend it at town meeting. So we asked this board to, accept to put it on, and then you can make your own decision whether you want to endorse it or not.
And I think that's just kind of speculative. Like, I don't see us, yes, are we, massaging these warrant articles? Yes. But we're doing it here at the table as a board, and planning board's doing it as a board. So I don't think any of these articles are being changed enough by not us, with us in the loop, that we would necessarily pull any of these. There may be ones that some of us maybe individually don't support, but I don't see us taking any of these completely off the warrant at this time.
No, and I think the nature of us moving the warrant forward was to decide at that point if we were going to sponsor an article. And I think at that point, we would have had to have said, no, we don't want to sponsor this article. I kind of feel like once we've decided, not that we couldn't pull it, but once we've decided to let it go forward, now, and we have to remember, like you said, Seth, the recommendation that's going to be at town meeting is going to be advisory committees, like for the warrant articles. I think for us, either someone is watching our meeting, or someone could ask at town meeting, hey, well, what did the selectmen, what do they think of this article? But I think once it goes to town meeting, really, the 4 of us are gonna vote as a taxpayer on sitting at the stage, like in the town. The Board of Selectmen's recommendation is not going to show up anywhere on paper. Just the advisory committees is going to be on the paper that people are going to follow. Up the top is going to say approved and what the vote is. So, I think once we've kind of said we at least support it to go to town meeting, we should kind of stay with that. Not that we have to.
Right.
Not that we have to, but I think the conversation to move it forward already took place. Does that make sense?
And just to come full circle, Frank, with what you said, thank you for that reminder, but you're right. We did suggest, or we did say, yes, we'll push this forward instead of it being a citizens.
And that's why I always like to work with the town.
Yeah, no,
Because
you're
we're
right.
going to go through, probably a third, maybe a fourth version of this since the very beginning, and it's all improvements.
Right.
And working through it, and that's the best way to
Yeah, it
do
really wouldn't be fair to then all of a sudden say, oh, forget it, we don't want this article. I think ultimately it's going to be decided on town meeting floor.
Town meeting floor could do that, but it's the same, yeah.
Ultimately, not that I expect this to happen, but if changes were made and the board simply couldn't agree on those changes, theoretically, you could say, we're not gonna
Or if,
pull it
let's say
off,
we
but-
didn't think, let's say we didn't think the marijuana article was ready for the 12th.
Exactly right.
Who's to not say
You
we
still have the right
couldn't
to
pull
do
that to the fall or something? I mean,
And
but,
then-
It's not your argument.
Sure it is.
It is.
I thought the marijuana was ours.
no, it is a Board of Selectmen
It's a
article.
Board of Selectmen article.
Yeah, it is a Board of Selectmen article, yep. It
And then-
follows the planning board guidelines, like for public hearing and everything, but it is our article in the draft warrant.
Yeah. And then the other thing is the only other articles that would have the potential of coming off are still the zoning articles from the last town meeting. So we're still waiting on guidance on that one, but we're getting
I thought
close.
they were coming off.
Well, that's the plan. It just, they're in the process of being advertised, which is what was required by the
There's
AG's
like a
office.
21-day period.
So we just gotta wait for that to
Speak now
finish
for
up and
vote your
then,
piece.
Gotcha.
and then we go from there.
All right, so with that, are we good to close item 8 on all the town meeting warrant articles with the agreement that we're all doing our best to try to have everything final for the 29th, which is our next meeting?
Madam Chair,
You will.
one question on some of the contracts that are still in negotiation. What would be is there a final date for the selectmen on those? Would that be the 29th or the 12th? The last time you'd want to see those here, and again, there's also consideration that the AdCom needs.
So
to
I would
as
say
well.
AdCom has to be comfortable, really, and I think, could they get pushed to the 12th for us? Sure, but I think AdCom needs to be able to see them, and we need to give them sufficient time.
Typically, what you do is you leave them on, and if there's not enough time for the advisory committee to look at it, or there's no agreement, everyone says we'll do no action.
We've done that for some recently, in the last
Typically, if
5
you
years. I
think you have a chance, you put it on. The big crush is, once an agreement comes on, for you to review it and say yes, and then get it to the advisory committee and have them have enough time to review it and make a recommendation. I know in the past, I think it's only occurred one time, where literally they came to an agreement at the very, very end of April. And the chairman of the advisory committee said, we're not taking it, because there just was not enough time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, Bill wasn't here then. And, the town manager at the time really tried to push it through, and the chairman said no.
Yeah, so I think we'd look to, at least my thought is we'd look to AdCom to make sure they have sufficient time, and as long as they have sufficient time, I think we,
Which would be 2 weeks.
Right.
Usually, because maybe you'll say this too, Seth, AdCom tends not to vote on the night. They like to,
That's my recommendation to them, too.
be presented, so you just have to give them the week they get it, and probably at least the next week for them to,
Right.
to be fair, for them to vet it. They're asked to recommend the funding, they have to have time to vet it.
And it really depends on how complicated the contract is. Is there a lot going on there? Or is it, pretty straightforward with just, some COLAs and a few other things? So, and how many there are. So,
I asked the question because of that, because there's a lot of them and they're complex. And, my goal with my team negotiating them has been to get them here tonight, and we got one here tonight. And I just want to know if there's a drop dead. I just want to know so we can map out the rest of getting, all of those contracts
and I
ready.
believe when I watched AdCom, I thought they did give dates, but maybe I'm remembering it
Yeah,
wrong.
the challenge with that is that that was not defined early in the stage, in the process. So I think we're doing realistically, we're trying to do a realistic, it's one thing to state that as a ground rule from the beginning, but we haven't done that in the past. But it is fair to say that I think it's fair to say that the AdCom can say, look, we need time to review this, and we need to be able to vet it properly before we make a recommendation. They could say at town meeting, they say, we don't have a recommendation on it because they didn't have enough time to review it. It would still potentially go forward. Ultimately, the town would decide whether they want to vote on it or not.
If the AdCom says no action, the warrant article is there, it would still be, the people would vote on it if they want?
No, more than likely, if the Selectmen Administration wants to bring forward a contract, and there's not enough time for the advisory committee to really vet it and go through it, the recommendation would be to, against it.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have enough time to do something, you say no.
Yeah.
And that's would be the recommendation, because you could just bring it right back. You know, there's no negative with regard to having it shot down, like zoning.
Yeah.
You know, you have to wait a certain amount of time to come back.
Okay.
But before we close, Madam Chair, are we going to bring the 3 citizens petitions in front of us? That was one thing we discussed 2 weeks ago, too.
So I watched it and it's televised, and anyone can go back. I feel like the presentations are pretty thorough. I have said since the get-go, if anyone comes to us, I let Christina and Bill know, by no means we're gonna tell them that they can't come in. No one has reached out. I feel like I had enough. And I think Steph and I talked after.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of pushing for it because I kind of felt like if we were going to vote for them, but I was able to watch and you know, and I felt comfortable for me, you know, and I know I was the one pushing for it, so.
And I did too. I watched them all. But I thought with Mr. Schlebeck's citizens petition, if we can discuss it here now.
Yeah, because I think that one.
It was a middle-of-the-road solution to that. And it seemed to me, coming out of that discussion, it was sending out the warrant to all the townspeople as a
Or
mail.
at least sending a notice to everybody.
Yeah, so my thought, my gut watching it is it was a great idea, but do we want to just limit it to planning? Like the sign bylaw, for example, you know, is one that, you know, came to mind that could be good to let everyone know about. The marijuana, you know, would it just be zoning changes, or should it really be everything?
Well, everything.
It would be the warrant.
It would be the warrant.
Right, but the
would
way
go
it's
out.
written now is that it is.
Correct.
Yeah, just zoning.
Yeah.
Zoning. But
Yeah.
I think what really pulls everything together
Right,
is sending out a notice of the warrant to every townsperson.
right.
Yeah, we're open to every and any idea to get people to pay attention to it, because.
Right, because I think that serves a number of purposes.
And the notice could be, it's on our website, you know, you can actually read it right on the website.
But I also think that we do have, like, I do think we can probably be more frequent, and we're still getting the communications plan together, but like, you know, putting out a reminder every time there's an AdCom meeting and where you can watch it, or every time there is a Board of Selectmen meeting, or where we're making the recommendations, or, you know, as much as we can put a sign uptown. I know Chris brought out the flashing sign, the stationary one on the common. So, you know, mailing is great too, but you're going to get people then that are going to get them every time and just throw it away. So it's almost, you know, back it up and say what's the best way. But the hard thing is you don't want to go to the engaged people, you know, that come to town meeting and do a survey because they already know about it. How do we collect everyone else that's not engaged and don't know? So, you know, to me, that hit me is that something we want to put on the fall town meeting as a Board of Selectmen sponsored article, you know, to look at.
Yeah, I think that's what we hear a lot after the fact.
Right.
People, you know, after something is passed or doesn't pass at town meeting, then all of a sudden people are like, well, I didn't know we were gonna do that, and I didn't know about this. And, there is the responsibility, I mean, you should care about what's going on in your town, but, I mean, I guess when it's something that you're changing zoning, changing a bylaw, like things that are really going to change, you know, how we do things, you know, it's a very interesting article, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But and you're right, Doc, there's even more than just that. And
Yeah,
I
I'd like
think
to
we
see it
are
even
saying,
more
yeah.
than just planning, you know,
Yeah.
when you looked at it, I was like, this isn't a bad idea. It's-
Unfortunately, a lot of people just saying it's on the website.
Right.
There are those who are just gonna go and look, and, I mean, for me, you guys know I'm not that techno, so I would read it before, if something came in front of me, I would read it, but then you can have people that are just
And
say,
we have
"Oh,
to think about the
yeah."
flip side of it, like what's the cost? What's
Yeah.
the labor associated with that? So I think Frank,
See, I thought that was a good middle of the road, sending out the warrant, because now you're not dealing with areas and who it gets sent out to because it affects a certain area. Remember that
Yeah,
came up
I
in
mean,
conversation?
so you would send it to every registered voter in the town, effectively, would be received, or registered household, I guess, but you would send one, but I think it's to be determined, because it's still a process, you gotta figure out, but, you know, you could go so far, this can go on for a discussion for quite a while, because you could say, let's send it to let's refer people to the website, or you could have copies of the warrant at the Council on Aging, at the library, at Public Safety, different places where people can actually review the warrant, so they wouldn't be limited to that wouldn't be limited to just going online, because that's a challenge for some
Yeah.
people too.
Yeah.
So I think that's the kind of thing that, putting the word out as a different location where you can read the warrant and have access to it.
Yeah.
Is
This,
really.
quite
the key.
frankly, is in the Ahern school lobby. Who's seeing it besides me picking up my seventh
Yeah.
grader when they're sick? I mean, really,
Exactly.
who's going to see that? You know?
I think there's a lot that has to be thought through with this. For example, when do you send it out? You know, and here it's 60 days.
Right.
Right. We know
It's a
we're not
long
done.
time.
Yeah.
That means you've already have signed the warrant.
Yeah.
You know, by the beginning of March, you'll have had to have already decided what's on the warrant.
Right.
And typically, there's always these, now that could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on the year. You know, maybe it gets everyone in there and involved earlier. But that could be, you know, significant, you know, think about, do you want to send out the whole warrant? You know, I don't think you want to do that. It could be pretty thick, maybe just a notice out there.
Right.
What, when this really started, in my opinion, is when the town, the Board of Selectmen decided not to publish the warrant in the Foxborough Reporter anymore.
Yeah, we really
It used to,
should.
it was always done, it was required. And then one time, because there was a long article, you know, this time it's solicitation, and maybe there were a number of them, that the cost was high, and they, you know, wanted to change it to save money, saying we can just put it on the website. I can't remember if it was once or twice that it used to be done. Did it have to be twice, Jeff?
Didn't have to be twice. It was done once, and the deal was that that was paid. The advisory committee recommendations were free.
Right. So you got the warrant being published, and then also the advisory committees being published, their recommendation. So that was a huge notice out to people.
And
to
maybe
really
that's
get
the
it.
cost-effective, smarter way to go back to it. You know, is it?
Well, that's tough, because I know a lot of people that don't get the reporter anymore. You know, back in the day, everyone used to get the, you know, reporter. Like it or hate it, everyone would read it. Now it's, you know, much smaller. So I don't know if that would really solve the problem. But there's a lot of issues to think about, especially the timing of it. You know, do you have to do it 60 days? You know, maybe you do it, you know, by April 1st. You know, April 1st day, you know, you have to send it out. That would also get this board to have to sign it by that date, which I think is then, you know, pretty reasonable. But there's a lot of things to think about. For example, it says in here, any zoning bylaws or regulations. So if the planning board changes their regulations, in theory, you know, if the Board of Selectmen changed some regulations that could have an effect on that, you know, you might have to send it out to everyone. You know, this, you know, I understand the concept, but what's here is very broad. You know, I don't know how it's not going into the bylaw or anything like that, so I don't know how it's really enforceable, but it's the idea. So, you know, even if it doesn't pass, the board may want to think about doing it. Because I think the real change happened when they stopped publishing it in the paper, and then the advisory committee, I don't think stopped it right away, but eventually it stopped being a freebie in there, and
They
the town
didn't
stopped
accept
putting it in there.
advisory committee recommendations.
I'm sorry?
They did not accept, the reporter did not accept the advisory committee recommendations. They wouldn't take them.
They wouldn't publish them for free
Yep.
if you paid for them, but they stopped, I'm sure, publishing them for free because we stopped publishing the warrant in
The
there.
paid one,
for
the one
paid,
with it,
Yeah.
hand in hand.
You know? So, and I can't blame them for that, especially, you know,
I
the business
think,
got
I think
tight.
the first year I was on AdCom, I think they were in the reporter. Did we pay for them at one point, Frank, or did they end?
I
did they
don't
end
know, I
when-
just
okay.
know that the warrant stopped
Yeah.
doing
Wow,
it,
since we
and I
did
spoke
that.
to people that didn't like that
It's been a
idea.
while since we
Yeah.
did that.
No, the warrant was definitely in the paper since, in my tenure in the last 4 years.
No.
I think the first year it was still in the paper. Because I remember we had to do a vote for it to go to electronic.
Right, which, what one was going to be our primary
Yeah.
source of.
Yeah, so I think it's only within the last 4 years, would be my guess based on my time on the board.
It's been longer for the warrant, though.
Okay.
So Frank, say this article were to pass, because the way it's written, we would have to follow that exactly.
No,
No, I mean,
you'd have to
Yeah.
get town council's opinion on this. I don't think the way this is written, it's not changing a bylaw, it's not doing anything. I don't think it's legally enforceable upon the town or Board of Selectmen. But if it passes, it's giving some direction to the Board of
it's telling us
Selectmen
that
to look at it
people wanna
and to
be
come up with
informed.
something.
Yeah.
Or
Or at least the ones that are at town meeting already.
But it's a fair comment, it's a fair discussion to have.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody here disagrees with that.
And
It's-
all
it's
of
a-
us
it's-
want to engage people.
Yeah.
We want to.
We want to have
do
a
anything we
conversation
can,
about how to do that, and what's the best way to do that. I'm not sure, it introduces the conversation, which I think is a good thing. But I'm not sure this is the right vehicle for it, but it introduces a good conversation.
And John did a good job
Right.
explaining it. But we can do a better job of getting that information out there.
For sure. So I mean, even moving forward, I would like to see maybe a plan, even if we don't have the communications plan executed. When are we going to put things out there? When are we going to push stuff? We do have the technology, we're just not using it. People can subscribe to annual town meeting, and have stuff go out there. Obviously, they'd have to be engaged enough to go up to subscribe it, but still, if it gets pushed to their inbox, that's different than having to go, self-service out to the website. So I do still think there's some things we can do in the meantime. And I hope over the next 2 months, we can make sure we have a plan.
Right. We'll have to define that.
All right, so we're well past schedule. Are we good to wrap up this one and go through the next items?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good thing Frank was here with all his hats.
Right? Using you for all kinds of questions.
Good to see you both.
Nice to see you, too. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to go assistant town manager's update, selectmen's update, and then action items.
Okay, so I've uploaded into board docs just a brief recruitment report. And the ones I wanted to just bring attention to are the ones that I believe are highlighted in your report. So there's a couple of hires that we made over the last couple of months, and I just wanted to update you on police officer Scott Flaherty.
I think we got this one. I remember this one already. Last meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
How about the three paramedics? Did I talk to you about them?
I don't remember them. I know Scott. That's why I remembered him.
Okay, great. So we did hire three paramedics who started in February, and they were replacing. We did have a lot of retirees this year. So Harrison McComb comes to us. He's actually a Foxborough High School graduate, and he's coming to us as a paramedic from Seekonk Fire Department. And then Anthony McCauley, again, also a paramedic coming to us from Lakeville Fire Department, and Jeffrey Islari coming to us from Norfolk Fire Department. So happy to have all three of them joining the Foxborough Fire Department. And just a brief rundown, folks at home can look on the website to see, what jobs we're advertising. But we've got two departments that are advertising a number of positions. So the Department of Public Health is advertising this regional position that we've been talking about for several months, and we're actually to the point of actually recruiting and hiring those folks, because the 6-town memorandum of agreement has been agreed to. So there's a food inspector and a housing inspector, and then in the recreational department, in preparation for the summer programs, we have the summer rec counselors, lifeguards, recreational leaders, and summer junior counselors all advertised. That's all I have.
All right, Bill, you've got general update on town business, and then I don't think we need to go through the permits that we've given. I mean, like every date. I think,
Yeah,
just
no, there's just a few of them anyways. But I don't have a lot for you right now. We're finishing up the budget. We're finishing up finalizing, trying to get final numbers for everyone. Meeting with the AdCom again tomorrow night, and then working on the CIP. I'm glad we got that squared away tonight too. So that's where I am right now. We're just trying to get everything ready for town meeting. That's all.
And then, as far as the town property permits, we did talk about these new chairs, and we're gonna have an action item later for some donations from Schneider, maybe trying to get them in for that first JC's concert on the Common.
Yep.
Not in here, but like to the Common, when there's a big group up there, to try to do some type of thank you and dedication for that electrical up there, so.
And just want to say publicly thank you to them. This is the first time I've actually been comfortable in this chair, sitting here for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, the arm has been ripping off my old chair for a while.
Yeah, this is actually a very comfortable, much more comfortable chair, and they were donated to us, in case anybody was asking or wondering. They were donated to us for no cost. All right, that's all I have, Madam Chair.
All right, great. So for Selectmen's update, the first item you got an email on, so Paige is going to be coming into our April 12th meeting. So I think that'll be a pretty busy meeting between the housing choice and closing the warrant to keep that light otherwise. But we're being asked, and everyone at home that is following this, there is a video that is out on the planning's page to just preview before that April 12th meeting. So we're going to talk about the housing choice, the MBTA community. So it's a piece of the law that was enacted, and it's to encourage MBTA communities. We're actually considered an adjacent community, not an actual MBTA community. That was a little confusing to me since we have a stop, but it's not formal yet. So we are an adjacent community, not an MBTA community. But there are a number of different steps that we have to do because of this, whether we adopt it or not. So in the end, we may adopt this, but in the end, which is, I think it's December of 2022, or if I'm not misspoken, we have to take a vote on that. So these are steps that we have to go through per this MBTA community process. By May 2nd, we have to have a presentation at the Board of Selectmen's meeting. So April 12th, we will have that presentation. We'll hear more about it, and it's required under the timeline that's also out on planning's website. So just wanted to tee it up. I know it's been sent out on email, but just kind of wanted to let you guys know what you need to do ahead of time and what to expect. So that's the first one. The second one is just a save the date reminder, like we're trying to do right now. We have the election coming up. We do have a contested school committee race. I think there's still some open seats that were never pulled for library trustees and Board of Health, from what I understand. So that's May 2nd. And then town meeting, which we've been talking about all evening, getting the warrant ready, is May 9th. So save the date for that, 7:30 at the high school. And I know Christina sent those out online. And then just a reminder, excise tax bills are due next week, I think the 24th. So just a reminder on that. And that's all that I had for Selectmen's update. I don't know if you guys had anything else to add?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
All right, so moving right along to action items.
Motion to approve Renee Tochi, James sorry, is that Claflin? Caffin, and Jenna Strickland to the Playing Fields Committee and the Recreation Division Director, Tree and Park Supervisor, and Foxborough Youth Lacrosse vacancies with a term to end May 31st, 2022.
Second.
All right, under further discussion, these will be appointed again. So this is kind of a short term. So, all right, all those in favor? All right.
Motion to approve the February 15th, 2022 Board of Selectmen meeting minutes.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Motion to accept list of donated items from Schneider Electric.
Second.
And just under further discussion, it's a number of chairs, recycling bins, filing cabinets, coat racks, things of that nature that we just have to accept. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Do we have anything to sign? Did I ever come sign
Yeah.
that thing? Did I ever come sign that thing you need me to sign?
I remember,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
okay.